You're listening to a Life in Quebec podcast. For more, visit lifeinquebec.com.
This is Michael Bourguignon with Life in Quebec. I'm here with Stephen Burke, who is the chairman of the Central Quebec School Board. We're discussing Bill 86, the bill to abolish school board elections and give parents more control over school operations, or so says the Quebec government. Mr. Burke has other ideas, and in fact, he does not believe that this will be of any benefit to the boards, and in particular that it will victimize English school boards. Now, Mr. Burke has written a letter to Premier Philippe Couillard and Education Minister François Blais. This was in October of 2015. That letter has not been answered. He also signed a letter by 10 other, actually a total of 10 school boards back in November, which also has not been answered. Now today, what we'd like to know is, what message do you, Mr. Burke, want to give the government about all this?
Well, I think the important thing is that we were always ready to discuss with the minister on the issue of governance of schools, on universal suffrage, on school democracy. I think it's important that the minister realize, especially for the English community. Now, this bill is not good for either the French or the English. But the English minority, our schools are the last institutions that we have full control over. We govern our schools. We elect the men and women to whom we entrust this governance. And so it is very important to the English community. Our schools are more than schools. They become community centers almost. And the Central Quebec School Board covers, or spans, if you wish, 30% of the province of Quebec. We have schools in Chibougamau, Shawinigan, Trois-Rivières, Les Saguenay. We have La Tuque, Thetford Mines, and the South Shore, and of course Quebec, and Trois-Rivières, Three Rivers. So it's 30% of the province of Quebec. In each one of our areas, our regions, the school is, as I said, it's almost the heart of that community. And how can you expect the English community to thrive if we don't even have full control on our schools? Now, the minister would argue, yes, but Bill 86 gives control to the composition is 6 parents elected by the Parents Committee, 2 principals elected by their peers, a teacher and a non-teacher, professional, elected by their peers, and 6 members of the community, 4 of which represent particular sectors and 2 others are elected generally. Now, these people can be, and I say elected, they would be, under this bill, it would be the decision of the Parents Committee or the parents of the school system, in this case our school board, to decide if they want an election. And the number out there is that 15% would have to request an election. That's asking a lot of parents who have to take care of their children, they've got other things, other issues, and that number is a very high number. We used to have, when elections in the English system get they're much more popular than the French system, but even at that, 17%, 20%, to ask for 15, and only if you get that 15, then you would have an election, and the minister is mentioned by internet. We agree with that. We would agree by using internet. Now, the problem is, if you don't reach the 15%, then you don't have this election, and these people are just nominated. If the Parents Committee doesn't find enough names, the minister can actually be very helpful and name the people that he would think would be best for that particular school board. I don't find that to be democracy. And as a taxpayer, where are the taxpayers in this bill? Parents are taxpayers, I know, and that's fine. But where are the taxpayers who are not parents, who have supported our school, whose children have gone through, no longer there, and where is their voice? This is not democracy. It's certainly not the form of governance of our schools that we want. And so I do believe that the English community is being victimized because we're being told that we can't have 2 different systems. We can't have a system for the Francophones, one for the Anglophones. I sort of agree. The system right now is okay. But we both have great school systems, the French and the English. Ours, of course, I'm very biased. Ours is the best. And why is it the best? Because it is administered by men and women who put the success of students first. We have small schools with great success. Our graduation rate is high. If you looked at the hit parade of school boards every year, out of the first 10, you'll probably find between 5 to 7 of the 9 English boards. We do well. We do well even in French first language, mother tongue. So my fear is that, and I have great respect for parents. I am a parent. I'm now a grandparent, but we all came through the parent system to get through to become. I've been a commissioner for 29 years. It's my 29th year. I still have the passion for it. I still find the time to find the passion. And we have to fight this bill. But we need the parents to be on our side and to not think that we're removing them from power. Quite the contrary. The minister says we'll give the parents the power to vote. No elected commissioner I know is against that. In fact, though, but I do tell the parents, once you have that right to vote, you then have fiduciary responsibility for the public funds that are entrusted to you. You have a definite responsibility, accountability to the taxpayer. And that is something that may prove to be sort of like having handcuffs, because you won't be able, unless you've decided that money is not, and money is a very important variable in all of our decisions, unless you've decided that money is not important to you, you will be blocked in a lot of your projects before you even bring them to the table. Right now, parents can bring projects to the table, and the elected commissioners, their job is to study them and decide if we have the budget to pay for them. Do we have the funds to cater to their requests? But if that changes, I have no problem with that.
Now, since you're talking about finance, Premier Couillard has said himself that he does not want 2 different systems for the French and the English. But in the area of taxation, isn't that exactly what exists now?
I'm happy you asked the question, because when we look at central Quebec, in the rural areas, our taxation rate is reasonable and can compare to the boards in those particular rural areas. But we cover 200 municipalities. We can't have 200 different taxation rates. So we have one common taxation rate, which is about 30.7 cents right now. Which means that if you're living in the area of Cap-Rouge, Saint-Augustin, Sillery, Sainte-Foy, you are paying 30.7 cents, whereas your neighbor, who's paying to Découvreur, which is one of the richest boards in the province, they're paying 14 cents. It's the same régime pédagogique. You're getting the same schooling. Your children are being treated in the same way as the students in the French system, and yet you are paying 2 times and a quarter the amount of taxes that your French neighbor is paying. If you're living in la capitale, la Commission Scolaire de la Capitale's territory, theirs is about 20 cents or 21 cents. So again, they're paying 20. Your neighbors are paying 20 cents. You're paying 30 cents. So that's 50% more. And then Première Seigneurie is, I think, 25, and we're paying 30.7 cents. What I mean by that is I've tried to explain to the Premier that this is unfair. We are being victimized because we have chosen to send our children to an English institution because we're eligible. Now, I can understand that, there could be, we can't all have the same taxation rate throughout the 69 school boards in the province of Quebec. But maybe that would be the solution, that we would all have it. Now we're going to displease some and please some others. The Bill 86, just says that the maximum remains at 35 cents. So we're going to continue, unfortunately, charging our taxpayers. And the sad part about this is that we are losing people in our community who have sent their children to our system, who are now retired, they're on a fixed income, and feel that the extra $400, $500, $600 per year is tough on their budget. So they leave. And my fear, and I don't want to be overly pessimistic, but what happens if a government, either this one or another one, decides to look at who's paying taxes to the English system? Oh, it's just the parents. If the taxpayers don't, oh yeah. So I guess the community doesn't really care for their schools. Now, maybe that's a very short-sighted kind of reasoning, but honestly, I'm surprised to see that the government who's doing this to us is a Liberal government. I'm very surprised, because we believe that the governance of our schools is important. And we never thought that this would happen under this government. I mean, I fought under the previous government for military eligibility, but now we're fighting for our to not be terminated, because the bill says we are terminated And 14 days after this bill is proclaimed, we're gone. 2 weeks. And honestly, I feel that it lacks a lot of respect for the men and women that have made our schools what they are. Our schools, as I said, perform very well, probably some of the best. And because I believe Central Quebec is the best school board, not only in the province, but probably in Canada. But that's my job to believe that, and the results prove that I'm not wrong. So that's about it. I feel that, yes, the bill has to be discussed. I'm hoping to get some public meetings. I hope we can get parents to attend them, and we'll make sure that they'll be interesting and they'll be full of information. And we will listen to those who may believe that Bill 86 is the next best thing since the invention of the wheel. We'll listen.
That actually leads me to my last question. You covered a lot of these same points in your correspondence with the Premier. What else can be done? If the letter goes unanswered, you have meetings coming up, what else can be done?
Well, I think it's already hit the papers. We have a Canadian Constitution, and the Canadian Constitution says that Article 23 would apply here. And Article 23, that is, we have constitutionalists working with us that say that Article 23 allows for the minority to govern its schools. Now, some people question what that means. What's the interpretation of governing a school? Does it mean to continue on having universal suffrage? That is my belief. I believe that it is. What's very important to us is to choose the men and women to whom we entrust the governments of our schools. Now, we're willing to bring this to court if need be. And actually, if anyone listening to this, I'm on the lookout for a champion or champions. People who are Anglophones, very well integrated into Quebec culture and the community in general, who would help us to start a campaign, a fundraising campaign. We need some funds. If we decide to bring this to court, going to the Supreme Court will cost a lot of money. And honestly, this is not money that can be taken from public funds, meaning school board funds. It has to come from private enterprise and people who believe that the governance of our schools is important. So that's a message to all those of you out there who feel that within their spirit, within themselves, there might be a champion that is only waiting to get to work.
That's Stephen Burke, Chairman of the Central Quebec School Board, looking for a champion to fight against Bill 86. Stephen, thank you very much for your time, for sharing your thoughts. And what are your thoughts? Share them with us online. This has been a podcast from Life in Quebec.
Thank you for listening to a Life in Quebec podcast. For more news, editorials, and opinion, visit lifeinquebec.com.